Welcome to Cavaliers Insider on cleveland.com. I'm Joe Noga and I'm joined by Dave Cassilo. We're sitting in for Dan Lobby right now. We're going to recap last night's big Game 5 win by the Cavaliers over the Chicago Bulls in the Eastern Conference semifinals. And that game puts them, Dave, one win away from advancing to the conference finals for the first time since 2009. We're also going to be joined by Joe Vardon and Chris Fedor from our Cavaliers team, as well as Chris Terzic from bloggable.com.
Yeah, I mean, the game last night, it really it sets the Cavs up where here, if they can win on Thursday, they can get a little rest before they go to the conference finals. So it is a crucial time, and we're going to talk with a lot of experts here to find out how they're feeling heading into Game 6.
All right, let's bring in Joe Vardon, our NBA special assignment reporter. Joe, let's talk a little bit about the performance last night. 38 points from LeBron James, but really it was the one thing that you pointed out in the post-game press conference to him. It was 0 turnovers. That was the big stat of the night for LeBron.
Yeah, I mean it really was, and I guess it's surprising that he went more than a full season without. Without going through an entire game with no turnovers. I actually think that the last time he did that was in 2014 against the Cavs as a member of the Heat. I think that's right. I didn't look that far last night, but I'm sure that he has had at least one turnover every year or every game this year, postseason and regular season. And, I mean, he averaged a career-high turnovers for the year. It's a problem that he really hasn't been able to solve. And, in this series, they were kind of magnified because he was also really shooting a poor percentage. And so he comes out last night and plays brilliantly and shoots the lights out and doesn't commit a turnover. I mean, it's certainly one of his best games of the season. And, it's got to rank somewhere in the echelon of his top postseason performances.
You brought up the shooting percentage number, and he made a point in the postgame press conference to bring up the fact that over the last 4 seasons he had improved his shooting percentage exponentially at each year. This season wasn't the case. What are some of the factors that go into that? LeBron's field goal percentage going down or sort of plateauing this year?
Well, I think you really have to look at what happened in the first couple months of the season. From him not feeling so well to him trying to figure out his new teammates and the new system, to kind of a byproduct of those things, which is just not kind of getting himself in the right positions to score the ball at a high percentage in the first couple months is really just kind of what happened there. He came back in January, and I don't remember exactly what his shooting percentage was from January on, but it was better. Would it have been enough to improve from the year before? I'm not sure. But the thing that you really just have to consider is his bottom line numbers, points, assists, rebounds, and let's be honest, wins. Are right where they need to be in this postseason. I mean, he's basically doubled his rebounding output from the regular season. He is not here to mess around. And the shooting, we can talk about that, but he's rounded into form and he's into winning form, and that's what they need from him.
Joe, the Bulls elected to play Jimmy Butler on LeBron for a good portion of the game when Jimmy was in foul trouble. Were you surprised at all by that, and how do you think LeBron responds in those situations?
No, I was not surprised by that. Just because, I don't know what other option they have. You can play Tony Snell there, but Snell requires more help. And, Shumpert was playing really well, and Kyrie was playing well. And, even without Kevin Love, the Cavs they get really dangerous when you have to start doubling LeBron. Just ask Celtics. They double them everywhere and paid the price for it. And so what Jimmy Butler does is he allows you the opportunity to play more of a straight-up defense. Now, the idea is when LeBron gets closer to the lane, someone's supposed to come over to help, and the Bulls were really late on that yesterday. But Butler provides them the chance to play the other guys straight up and to sit more in passing lanes. And so, I mean, Tibbs is notorious. I mean, he's a grinder, and he stays with guys through injury, through foul trouble. So I'm not surprised.
Joe, here we are. The Cavaliers are one game from closing it out. What are you sensing when you talk to LeBron now, and what has he sort of said about having this opportunity to get things done on Thursday?
Well, it's a fascinating question because he has said nothing. There was no mention last night from anybody on the Cavs, at least when they sat up at the podium, about the idea that they're now one game away from ending the series. So, I think that speaks to a couple things. I think it speaks to how difficult the series has been, and also just how far they've had to come because of various challenges with Kyrie and Kevin and JR being out the first two games and whatever. So today, David Blatt discussed that, and they recognize the situation that they're in. You never want a Game 7 to be forced upon you, and yet at the same time, they know that they're going into a hostile environment, and they're expecting the Bulls' best shot, and that the series has been so close throughout that I don't think you can really say that the Bulls are dead by any stretch.
Joe, going into Game 5, I think it was well documented, and following his comments after the game about the level of treatment that LeBron had to receive on that rolled left ankle that he suffered in Game 4. Do you have an update on his physical status as we get ready for Game 6?
Well, when you think about whose health is an issue, I mean, you think first about Kyrie and then about Shumpert, just because their injuries are a little bit more noticeable, just because you can see them walk with a gait or have trouble at times moving, where LeBron showed no signs of anything last night, and that wasn't surprising to me. It looked bad on Sunday, but he came in and played right away, didn't even leave the game, and last night he was just too much to handle. So, I mean, they were off their feet today. They didn't practice. I mean, they may have watched film, but he's fine. He's ready to go. And that's, as we move forward here now, the Cavs are in a situation where if they can close it out on Thursday, then they're going to get some rest. And, I mean, how crucial would that be to get Kyrie Irving feeling a little better and Shumpert feeling a little better? And, of course, any rest you can afford LeBron is great, too. So this is a big opportunity for them. They should try to capitalize on it, end this series, and rest up for the conference finals.
Joe, one more question before we let you go. I'm sure you've watched the play numerous times now. The block on Rose towards the end of the game that really sort of saved things at the time. What did you see on that play, and what makes LeBron so dangerous in those situations?
Well, I mean, what makes him so dangerous is he's 6'8", 250, can jump out of the gym and hustles his tail off. Anytime you're going in for a layup in transition on against the Cavs, you have to be aware of him because he's probably lurking. And it was a big play. The Bulls were in the middle of a charge there, and that one would have tied it, and LeBron knocked it out of there. And it's just another. I mean, of all the litany of plays that took place, it's just another one that just kind of punctuated his great night and his ability to rise to that level in the playoffs.
Well, Joe, we appreciate you joining us. Look forward to your coverage of Game 6 in Chicago. Rest up and have a safe trip out there.
Thanks, guys. Always a pleasure.
All right. So we've heard from our expert on LeBron's performance. You know what? Let's hear from LeBron and some of his post-game comments after Game 5. This is what he had to say.
Yay, first of all. No turnovers. It's the first stat I always look at after the game. Just try to be efficient for my teammates, and that was very efficient. As much as I was handling the ball tonight, myself and Kyrie, to not give the opposing team another possession or extra possessions, that's a huge stat for myself. And I never pat myself on the back ever, but I will on that one. Well, I think our coaching staff did a great job of putting me in positions where I can be successful, and I just try to read and react, try to play my game, be aggressive, and anytime you get some shots going early, you feel pretty good. I was able to get my jumper going. I was able to get my post-up game going pretty early in my attack game. So, just try to feed off of it. Just try to feed off the rhythm that I had and just try to stay in the rhythm as long as I could. To be able to shoot 50% against a Bulls defense, against a Tibbs defense, I want to say just a Bulls defense. I've played against Tibbs, not only here in Chicago, but him with the Celtics. To shoot 50% versus that defense is very impressive, and I think it is the shot attempts that we got. We had 79 shot attempts, and we only had 11 turnovers, and that's key. Tristan's been unbelievable. Through 5 games, you give him an A+, and effort. It's all effort with double T. You can't coach a motor. When a guy has a motor, you can't coach it. You put him on the floor, he's gonna make things happen. And he has a knack for rebounding. He has a high motor, and he really, 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 really cares. And I think we grew some tonight, but I also think we didn't grow as much. I think we gave up 30 points in the fourth quarter, which is unacceptable. At one point, I think we were up 17, and we just kind of got into the trance defensively. We gave up too many backdoor cuts. We gave up a couple and ones. We gave up a couple open threes in the fourth quarter. And those are things that we will watch tomorrow and say, okay, well, listen, we can't have these type of laws defensively, because we have a quarter, like in Game 4, where we have a 12-point quarter defense. We have a 16-point quarter defense where we're just locked in. When we're locked in defensively, when everyone is in tune and we know this is how we're going to be, then we're great. When we don't, it seems like it's like a pick six. When we're not locked in, when one guy is off or 2 guys are off, it's a pick six, and they score. It's a 3, it's a 3-point play, it's a layup. And those are things that, as a young group, they're going to happen. You just don't want them to happen consistently. But I think tonight we did a great job of playing our game. But there's some things that we can continue to still get better with.
All right, and that was LeBron's post-game comments. It's pretty clear and obvious his sort of affection and affinity for Tristan Thompson and the effort that Tristan Thompson gives in a game. Did you see anything out of Tristan's effort last night that gave you reason to think why LeBron is so inspired by his play?
Yeah, I don't think it's just last night, but just sort of the whole season. He's just sort of that guy who had to take a backseat when Kevin Love got here, but he didn't really complain or anything like that. And he fills the role really nicely to give them some rebounding and size off the bench. And now with Love out, he's the exact guy they need. And when the Bulls had to go smaller last night, when Taj Gibson was out, Thompson really responded and took advantage.
Well, we're going to get to, like you mentioned, Taj Gibson being out here in a second with Chris Fedor. Let's bring in Chris Fedor, our Cavs beat reporter. Chris, good to have you here again.
What's going on, Joe?
Just sort of trying to break down a lot of what happened in Game 5. Chris, the latest news, though, coming out of the Cavs, Kendrick Perkins, what do you have on him with the incident in Westlake with a domestic incident?
Yeah, the Cavs said they really didn't have any kind of comment on it. They made sure to point out the fact that no arrest was made. Kendrick had a conversation with David Blatt today. He had a conversation with General Manager David Griffin. But he is going to travel with the team for Game 6. They leave this afternoon for Chicago, and they are planning to have him available in Game 6. And given all of the injuries that the Cavs have, obviously Kevin Love, Kyrie less than 100%, Iman Shumpert less than 100%, and Timofey Mozgov coming off one of the worst games that he's ever played for the Cavs, having a guy like Kendrick Perkins, that extra body against Chicago's talented front line, is something that is going to be important, even if he can just give 8 to 10 minutes. So the fact that he's going to travel with the team and
he is expected to play in Game 6. I would say so far all good news when it comes to that front. Of course, the Cavs are taking it seriously. They're aware of the matter, and they're going to let this thing play out.
Chris, obviously the big play that a lot of people are talking about, a big incident, was Taj Gibson getting ejected after getting his leg locked by Matthew Dellavedova. What do you sort of see on the play? Do you think that there should have been any additional punishment right on the scene? And do you anticipate Taj Gibson possibly being suspended?
Yeah, Dave, I mean, I feel like I'm in the minority on this thing because I'm actually one of the people that was surprised by the ejection and doesn't think that there should be any subsequent suspension for Taj. Obviously, he pushed Dellavedova from behind, and to me, that's considered a basketball play. Those things are going to happen. When you've got guys battling for a loose ball and trying to get after it on the glass, and it's been a tough physical series where a couple of plays have been the deciding factor in the last 3 games, every single possession matters. Every single loose ball matters. Every single rebound matters. And we saw that last night. Game 5 came down to an offensive rebound that the Cavs were able to get. So Taj Gibson shoved Matthew Dellavedova. There should have been a foul called, but that's something that's going to happen when you've got 2 guys battling for position. At the same time, I'll take it a step further and say Delly clearly, from the replays that I saw, and I looked over and over and over, tried to get as many angles as possible, guys. To me, it looked clear that Delly took his 2 feet and he latched on to Taj Gibson's leg, preventing him from shaking free. And any number of things could have happened there. If Taj would have turned the wrong way, maybe he has an injured knee. If he would have turned the wrong way, maybe he's got an injured ankle. So as a player, I understand where Taj Gibson is coming from. You've got a guy who is strong. LeBron James called him the toughest guy on the Cleveland Cavaliers, who's got one of your legs locked up, and you're trying to kick yourself free. Now, did he have to kick Matthew Dellavedova in the foot? It didn't look like he kicked him in the butt, by the way. It looked like he kicked him in the foot. No, he probably took it a little bit too far, and the refs probably thought that he took it a little bit too far. But look, if I'm an athlete and I'm playing a game, a hard-fought physical game, and somebody's going to lock my leg, I'm absolutely going to try and break myself free. I don't think there was anything malicious from Taj Gibson, and I don't think anything is going to happen moving forward because I think the league, if anything, is going to look at the play guys, and Matthew Dellavedova might actually get a fine from it. But a suspension for Taj Gibson? Absolutely not. Nothing that he did on that play warrants a suspension.
And Chris, when that play goes to the review, the entire play is available to be reviewed. What happened before the skirmish, what happened immediately afterwards, and that includes Aaron Brooks coming from 10 to 15 feet back and shoving J.R. Smith from behind. Now, something that might have happened there, J.R. Smith, who's already been suspended once in these playoffs, if he retaliates, that's a whole other situation. Did you see anything with Aaron Brooks? Could there have been additional penalties in that regard?
There might be a fine for Aaron Brooks just for coming over there and shoving a player. If you remember, Kendrick Perkins was fined for essentially shoving a guy in the face in the Boston series. So there could be a fine coming from Brooks. And Brooks is a feisty dude, man. He's already gotten 1 technical in this series already. For shoving Matthew Dellavedova. It happened in Game 3 in the second half. So it's clear that Delly's style and the way that he plays tends to get under the skin of Chicago. So Brooks could, I guess he could get a $15,000 fine or something along those lines, but my guess is that he's going to be available in Game 6. But I think you bring up a great point there, Joe. J.R. Smith is a volatile guy. J.R. Smith is somebody who is known to lose his cool, especially in pressure moments, and for him to not take a swing when somebody shoved him in the back, in this case Aaron Brooks, I think that showed tremendous restraint by J.R. Smith, tremendous growth, and kudos to him for keeping his cool in that moment because the Cavs absolutely cannot afford to lose him, and I'm guessing that when it happened, he probably had a quick flashback to what happened in Boston and thought to himself, if I retaliate here, the NBA might come after me and they might suspend me again. So I give him a lot of credit for keeping this cool.
Chris, it's the first time in the series that the Cavaliers have led. Do you sense any change in demeanor at all? Maybe a little breath of relief, a little space that they now have where they're not sort of playing with their backs against the wall?
The interesting thing to me, Dave, is following Game 3, after Derrick Rose hit a buzzer beater and Chicago took a 2-1 series lead, the Cavs didn't panic, and they didn't seem worried. They still had a bunch of confidence. And I think part of that is the fact that they knew that they didn't play their best in 2 of the 3 games to start the series. I think the other part of that is everything that they've been through during the regular season, with the drama, with the controversy, with David Blatt's job being questioned, with the trades that they made, with the injuries that they dealt with. It hardened them, and it readied them for getting behind in a series 2-1, or getting down in a hole 1-0 in the first game of the Eastern Conference semifinals. So I think that played into it. I think the fact that they knew that it took Derrick Rose hitting a miraculous buzzer beater and Kyrie Irving not being himself and LeBron James being inefficient, it took all those kinds of things for Chicago just to win that Game 3. So I felt like even when they were down in this series, guys, that they were confident. And now that they have an idea that they can go into Game 6, close it out, maybe get some extra days of rest for Iman Shumpert, LeBron, and Kyrie Irving, I think there's a business-like approach to Game 6. I don't think there's going to be any overconfidence. I certainly don't think there's going to be any, well, we've got the buffer of Game 7. I think it's one day at a time. We've got a great opportunity to go on the road against Chicago, but we also know that Chicago is a talented team, so there is confidence, but I don't think they've crossed the line into overconfidence.
Well, Chris, once again, we thank you for joining us here on Cavaliers Insider. Good luck, safe travel to Chicago for Game 6, and we'll look forward to your coverage there.
You got it, guys.
All right, that was, again, Chris Fedor, and you know, as we were sitting at the tables watching along with Chris, you're right, his reaction to that fight was along the lines of, boy, why isn't Delhi getting at least looked at here for the leg lock. But I think it was interesting, something he mentioned about the Cavs' level of confidence. Right now, they know that, you know, in the games that they haven't won in this series, they haven't played their best ball. And, you know, when they do play those, like LeBron mentioned, those quarters that go, you know, 16-point quarter, 12-point quarter defensively, they know they can play with anybody.
Yeah, it's really, they do have that confidence about them. There's really just a confidence in the building. Like, we were at the game last night, and I didn't feel at all that anyone in that building felt it could be the last home game. And there was that possibility last night. Had they lost that game and then lost on Thursday, that was the end of the season. So this team knows that there are bigger things in front of them, and I do think, as Chris said, they're going to take a business-like approach and try to finish things off here on Thursday. Well,
it won't be easy in Game 6 on Thursday night. They have to go back to Chicago. Let's bring in Chris Terzic from bloggable.net on SB Nation, or .com, bloggable.com on SB Nation. Chris, good to have you here.
Hey, how you doing, guys?
Real good. Chris, can you give us an update really quickly, the latest, what do you know about Paul Gasol and his status for Game 6?
Basically, we haven't really got a full update yet, but I think the general belief is he's about 50-50, and they said day-to-day since the initial prognosis. So I said this before, but with a guy like Gasol, not being the most fleet of foot, not being the most athletic guy in the world, not being the fastest player on the court, anything, a lower body injury that's going to hamper him like that, anything that's going to make him slower than he already is, that's a big concern. And so you really can't have him out there if he's 40%, I believe is what he called himself. You know, he's at around 40. He believes he can get better, but 50-50, day-to-day, I think that's where it is right now.
And as a follow-up, after Game 5, Coach Thibodeau was asked about Derrick Rose and whether or not there was a recurrence of that stinger there. Anything develop out of that with Derrick Rose?
That was his response seems kind of testy to the question. You know, if he was cleared and a stinger, you know, just going off of what we know, basically it's a football injury, not really occurring often in a basketball game. But if it kind of limits those, and clearly he was clutching and grabbing, and it affected him in that game. But Tibbs said after the game that, you know, I guess he'll be fine. I think that was the exact quote. I guess he will be fine. So Tibbs is not a doctor, and Tibbs will play his guys if they are given clearance. So I expect Rose to play. I wouldn't expect that to linger. But we also had some reports coming out that Rose had trouble putting on his sweatshirt after the game, and that's a little alarming. That, it's kind of grimacing to put on his clothes. How's he supposed to go out and compete in Game 6? So I'd expect him to play, but haven't heard anything otherwise to indicate.
Chris, as you look at the series right now, down 3-2 is Chicago. Do you think they can win the series if Pau Gasol does not play again?
Probably not. No, I don't. Pau his offense needs too much, and I think the thing that we've seen the last two games in his absence that has really done Chicago in is the long droughts of scoring, where the Bulls will go 5 minutes, 6 minutes, 7 minutes at a time, and they can't find a bucket, and they can't find a way to put the ball in the basket, and that's where it's just painfully obvious. That's where they miss Gasol, and he's an option to throw in the post, pick and pop, you name it. He's got a variety of ways and methods to put the ball in the bucket, and without him, they're just lacking that severely. And for all the shortcomings that Pau has defensively, he's always meant a lot to this offense. And even though it's kind of an awkward pairing with him and Joakim Noah, his place on the floor is irreplaceable. And we've seen that. Taj Gibson hasn't really stepped up. Nikola Mirotic has pick shots. So, yeah, if they don't have Pau, I don't think that they can win the next two games without him.
Were you surprised at all at the end of the game to see Kirk Heinrich in there? And what have you sort of thought of the bench play overall for the Bulls this series?
Yeah, Kirk, I can't say I'm surprised to see him out there, because knowing Tibbs and just, having a familiarity with him for 5 seasons now, he's going to go with his guys, and Kirk is Tibbs' guy. This is kind of as simple as you can put it. He trusts Kirk to be in the right spots defensively, and, last night in particular, he was a little limited. Tibbs has shown he's reluctant to go to Tony Snell, who is a guy I've advocated for to get more minutes, and he's going to go with Kirk. So, no, I wasn't surprised. I was a little bit frustrated, but I guess I can understand all things considered, because that's just what Tibbs is going to do. To put it simply, he's going to give Kirk the benefit of the doubt no matter what. And to Kirk's credit, he's hit shots. I mean, I do have to say that he's hit shots in this series against the Cavs. The bench play in total, though, really getting nothing from Aaron Brooks, and that's been a bit of a killer. He's been a spark off the bench all season. He was all regular season. And Nikola Mirotic, again, not hitting shots. He's just, some of that goes back to Mozgov and Thompson protecting the rim so well and doing such a great job defensively. But, Nico just hasn't found the stroke. He hasn't been able to really find a groove, and that's been a killer. Yeah, bench production should have been an area that the Bulls really took advantage of in this series, especially considering all of Cleveland's injuries and, being forced into playing some guys that don't play major minutes, and, the Mike Millers and the Daniel Jones, guys like that. But, the Bulls haven't been able to exploit that. That's on them. They need to be better.
Chris, we saw the Bulls erase a 17-point deficit there, cut it to within a possession or two in the fourth quarter. They did that with a smaller lineup, like you mentioned, without having Taj Gibson available. What worked effectively for them with that smaller group in there? Thibodeau mentioned afterwards that he liked a certain grouping, a certain pairing guys that particularly worked well together. What did they do well?
Yeah, Tibbs' history, he likes to close games out with two guards at a bare minimum. He likes to close games with a smaller backcourt. When Rose has been available, that's an important caveat. When Derrick Rose is healthy, typically Tibbs likes to go with Kirk Heinrich or whoever the other smaller guard on the team is, and kind of shift Jimmy to the three and, kind of go from there. Last night I was surprised that he went with the small lineup as long as he did, and the Taj Gibson thing definitely kind of forced his hand there. Defensively, they were active, and they were able to kind of get up in Cleveland on the perimeter, which I liked. Aaron Brooks, he's small, and he's going to get taken advantage of by bigger guards, but he is very active on defense. I have to credit him there. It's not a lack of effort on his part. It's just so small that he's going to get taken advantage of due to bigger guards around the league. But that lineup last night, and it's still kind of puzzling to me, even after watching the game again this morning. I watched it on replay. They got enough stops, and they managed to hit some shots on the other end. I don't know. I don't want it to sound that simple, but it worked for some reason, and I can't really get to the bottom of it. And I don't know. I wouldn't want to see it again, even though it did have some success, because I know those players probably aren't the best complement to one another on the floor. But who knows? That's why Tibbs is the coach, and I'm not, right?
Chris, last question here, and then we'll let you go. What happens to this team if they lose on Thursday? Are we going to start seeing some major changes?
Yeah, if they lose on Thursday, I think it's the end of an era. I think that the Thibodeau era is going to come to a close, and haven't given it too much thought to this point, but those thoughts are starting to creep in a little bit, and it's a reality that we're one game away from, one loss away from, I should say. So, yeah, it's on the verge, it's on the horizon. I believe when I talked to Dan Abbey earlier in April with you guys, I told him that if the Bulls couldn't make it out of the second round, then yeah, that might not be enough to save Tibbs' job. And then since that point, it's been a month and a half since I talked to him. There's been even more reports coming out saying that if the Bulls don't make the finals, it's pretty much it. That's kind of the where Tibbs needs to get this team to. He needs to get them to a finals appearance. Otherwise, it's not going to be good enough. It's not going to save the job. So, yeah, if they lose Game 6, if they lose Game 7, whatever, whenever the series is over, if they can't win the next two games, I wouldn't be surprised in the slightest to see Tibbs go. Even though I really did think that because he has 2 years left on his contract, the Bulls weren't going to want to eat it. But it's just the disarray and the miscommunication and everything that goes on between the front office and Tibbs. It looks like it's just too much now, too much to handle going forward.
All right, Chris, thanks again for joining us. Look forward to more of your coverage there on bloggable.com.
Great. Thank you, guys. Take care.
Well, there we have it, sort of putting a nice little bow on Game 5, and got to look ahead to Game 6 on Thursday, 8 o'clock tip on TNT. Just a quick prediction here, David, from you for Game 6.
I think the Bulls are going to win Game 6. I think that they're going to have a lot of emotion. I think they kind of sense what Chris was just saying, that it might be the end of the era for this group with this coaching staff, and I think they're going to come out and I think they're going to win the game with or without Gasol, but I do think that the Cavs will take it in 7.
Yeah, I sort of feel the exact same way. I think it's going to be a tough victory to get if we're able to get one, Cleveland, in Game 6. I do see the series coming back here for one more game, Game 7 here in Cleveland. That'll do it for Cavaliers Insider. Look for more coverage here on cleveland.com.